The governor of Edo State, Mr. Godwin Obaseki, is unimpressed with the poor state of facilities at the state-owned Stella Obasanjo Hospital in Benin City, the state capital. Mr. Obaseki, who gave the assessment after inspecting facilities at the hospital, says that the government is looking to overhaul the healthcare sector for better service delivery.
Godwin Obaseki changes pleasantries with the management of the Stella Obasanjo Specialist Hospital in Benin City, the Edo State capital.
Welcome, sir.
Mr. Obaseki wastes no time as he proceeds to inspect the various departments in the facility, with the hospital team showing the way.
We have 4 actually dedicated suites.
There are many stopovers as the team evaluates the equipment on ground along the way. Governor Obaseki responds to some patients asking for improved service.
We are going to create a public complaint box or the email or phone numbers for you. When anything that you think is going wrong, all you need to do is type it on your phone and you will send it to either the email address or the WhatsApp number we will give to you.
The inspection concludes with a closed meeting with the management team. At the end of the session, Governor Obaseki scores the state of facility very low. He says that the investments in the new specialist hospital came at a cost to the existing ones.
I'm very disappointed. I mean, this hospital is less than 14 years old, and you can see clearly there's not been any serious work at maintenance. And with medical facilities, like most other public assets, if you don't maintain them, they'll fall apart. So I'm really shocked that if we had a facility like this, we didn't think of expanding it, of improving it, of upgrading it, and we started building something we call 5-star. I didn't realize that so much investment was poured here in the first place 12 years ago. Why we have not optimized them, I don't know. Look at the IC units that were just left to fallow. Today, they are unusable.
The Edo State government says that improving the healthcare delivery will come at a cost, and residents must be ready to contribute through the health insurance scheme.
More stories now. The ECOWAS Commission is attributing persistent cases of violent clashes and other forms of criminality in the region to the lack of good governance, injustice and weak electoral systems. Mr. Francis Behanzen, who is the ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, made this observation at the official launch of the Regional Peace and Security Architecture Operations in Abuja. According to him, the security situation across West Africa continues to be fragile because of the winner-takes-it-all attitude of politicians.
The West African region continues to grapple with security challenges ranging from violent clashes and terrorism. The situation, especially in the last decade, has mounted serious pressure on the security of member states, forcing the ECOWAS Commission to form several alliances to restore peace in the region. The launch of the Regional Peace and Security Architecture Operations in Abuja is another of such efforts by ECOWAS to curb insecurity in the region. This alliance is between the ECOWAS Commission, the European Union and the German government.
The program also aims to enable ECOWAS to manage emerging or existing conflicts and, in addition, contribute to the creation of a secure and safe post-conflict environment.
Complex challenges to peace and security in the region require a comprehensive response. Alongside counter-terrorism efforts and intelligence sharing, member states are urged to foster cohesion among communities and strengthening traditional conflict prevention and resolution mechanisms.
But this is not the first time a cross-border alliance is formed to tackle insecurity in the region. Some participants here believe that efforts to sustainable peace in the region are failing because of the attitude of politicians.
The political and security environment in our region remains fragile due to the persistence of some structural factors that represent a challenge for the stability of our member states and root causes of conflict in our region. These factors include the perceived winner-take-all form of the political victory, the insufficient accountability of leaders, lack of transparency in regimes.
Over 20 million euros have been budgeted for this project. It is hoped that the region will get value for this money and peace restored to the many troubled spots within the region.
You're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, reaching you live from Lagos. Let's switch over now to business news with Bisi Adebayo.
You First. First Bank.
Welcome to Business News. We'll begin with the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation saying it has discovered hydrocarbon or oil and gas deposits in the northeastern part of the country. The state oil firm in a statement explains that one of its rigs was drilled to a total depth of 13,701 feet, which led to the discovery in the Kolomani River 2 well in the Gongola Basin. The NNPC says it plans to drill additional wells for full evaluation of the hydrocarbon volume in the Gongola Basin, while attention will be given to the Dahomey and Anambra basins, which have already witnessed oil and gas discoveries. Earlier this year, President Muhammadu Buhari flagged off the drilling of the Kolomani River 2 well on February the 2nd. The Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council is on a mission to engage the private sector players and government at subnational level in order to fast-track Nigeria's economic growth. Headlining the implications of the pilot program in Lagos, the Senior Special Assistant to the Vice President on Trade and Investment, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, says the move impacting the next World Bank ratings.
PEBEC, as you know, has been on since 2016. Now we're on the next level. What does that mean for Nigerians? We've accomplished some things, yes. We've had some successes in rankings. We've had some successes on impact. But the journey is really on. So we decided to start almost afresh. Although we've been doing a subnational tour, we've organized this in a fresh way. And we need to communicate to people what those tours mean. It's to listen. We need to implement and then to track, because it's when you track that you can see the impact. So that's how we came up with LIT. It's a subnational tour. This was the kickoff event, very successful as you can see. Next up, we're going to Ekiti, then we're going to Jigawa. Anambra is hosting us, Delta is hosting us, Kwara is hosting us. And you know where we started from, 170 out of 190. We've moved 24 places in the last 3 years. This year, the World Bank let out a teaser last week telling us that Nigeria is one of the 20 most improved economies that's going to come out. The rankings are going to come out on October 21st. So I'm optimistic. There's been a lot of hard work, and now we're optimistic. But the most important thing for us is that our private sector feel the impact.
The Minister of Finance, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, has directed the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria to utilize the powers of its newly amended act in recovering its huge debt owed by a few individuals and organizations in the country. Mrs. Ahmed, who made this known during the quarterly meeting with agencies under the Ministry of Finance, says she expects a lot more from AMCON since President Muhammadu Buhari has signed the amended 2019 AMCON Act into law, which gives additional powers to deal with the debtors. At the same time, the chairman of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, Professor Bolaji Owasoye, who also chairs the Interagency Presidential Committee on AMCON's debt recovery, asked related government agencies to ensure they tighten the noose on the debtors for timely repayment. Let's turn now to the Nigerian Stock Exchange, where Friday's trading session ends in the red as sell pressure dominates the entire 5 sessions within the second week of October. Layo Adegoke tells us more.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. A week of 5 straight losses end today at the Nigerian equities market. The second trading week in the month of October ends in the red by 0.19% at 26,533.78, with the equity cap lower at 12.916 trillion naira. The 0.50 and 0.10% gains from the insurance and banking sectors were not enough to curb the losses from 3 other counters we track, as consumer goods shared 0.87%, industrial goods lost 0.22%, and oil and gas was down 0.10%. Total turnover of shares traded today were much lower than half of Thursday's session, as 117.38 million shares, worth 1.50 billion naira, changed hands in 2,100 transactions. On the list of top trades are FCMB, Access, and Transcorp. ABC Transport leads a pack of 10 gainers by 10%, while Niger Insurance led 11 other losers by 0.09%. And that's it on the stock market report. I'm Layo Adegoki.
Thanks, Layo. Meanwhile, global stock market indexes rallied to a positive close today following confirmation by U.S. President Donald Trump that a substantial trade deal with China will come in phases. Here are some of the figures for today. And that's it on Business News. Thank you for watching. I am BC Adebayo.
You First. First Bank.
In stories outside of Nigeria, now the United Nations says that some 100,000 people have fled their homes in northern Syria as Turkish pressure put more pressure on its cross-border offensive on Kurdish-held areas. Many people are sheltering in schools and other buildings in the city and the town of Tel Tamar. For details of this and more international stories, let's now join Juliana Olainka in London with Around the World in 5.
Good evening from the Channel's newsroom in London. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg has expressed concerns over Turkey's escalating military operation in northeast Syria. Following a meeting in Istanbul with the Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan and the country's foreign minister, the military alliance chief urged Turkey to show restraint to preserve the progress that has been made in the global fight against Islamic State.
I shared with him my serious concerns about the ongoing operation and the risk of further destabilizing the region, escalating tensions, and even more human suffering. While Turkey has legitimate security concerns, I expect Turkey to act with restraint.
Along border towns, Turkish warplanes and artillery have stepped up its offensive. A short journey from here, a funeral ceremony was held for a 9-month-old Syrian baby who was killed in the border town of Akalau during mortar and rocket fire. 7 people were killed and 70 wounded. Turkey's battle against US-allied Kurdish fighters in northeast Syria could transform the 8-year-old war. European Council President Donald Tusk responded to the Turkish president's threat to send millions of Syrian refugees to Europe if European condemnation of military operation continues.
Turkey must understand that our main concern is that their actions may lead to another humanitarian catastrophe, which would be unacceptable. Nor will we ever accept that refugees are weaponized and used to blackmail us. That is why I consider yesterday's threats made by President Erdogan totally out of place.
The European Union's chief negotiator has been given the go-ahead by the remaining EU 27 to enter into intense negotiations with the United Kingdom. Britain is due to leave the world's biggest trading bloc on October the 31st, and despite the flurry of activity, it remains unclear if a withdrawal agreement can be agreed by both sides before the deadline.
Look, I'm not going to go into emotions from the podium. We are working towards a deal because this is the determination to arrive at a deal. And I think if there is a will, there is, of course, a way. Otherwise, people would not be working on this.
The Ecuadorian president, Lenin Moreno, has accused the leader of Venezuela of escalating protests that have destabilized the nation over the past 7 days. During an interview with a local broadcaster, Moreno said that members of Colombia's FARC rebel group and Venezuelans sent by President Nicolas Maduro were involved in the demonstrations that have led to a state of emergency. Security forces in the country have turned tear gas and water cannons on protesters who have set up burning barricades and hurled stones at police lines in protest against a cut in fuel subsidies. A South African High Court has denied the former president of South Africa, Jacob Zuma, a permanent stay of prosecution. The ruling has paved the way for the start of Zuma's $2 billion arms deal trial, which will begin next week. The former leader had applied for a permanent stay of prosecution on 18 charges of fraud, racketeering and money laundering relating to a deal by European military hardware for South Africa's armed forces in the 1990s. British counter-terrorism detectives are investigating the stabbing of 3 people in a shopping centre in the northern English city of Manchester. This video uploaded to social media showed a police officer pinning down a man to the ground while others ran towards the scene. The stabbings took place at the Arndale shopping centre in the heart of the city. The Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has reacted to becoming the 2019 Nobel Peace Prize laureate.
Thank you very much. It is a prize given to Africa, given to Ethiopia, and I can imagine how the rest of Africa leaders will take it positively to work on peace-building process in our continent.
The Prime Minister has been recognised for his peacemaking efforts with Eritrea. The two countries had been longtime foes who fought a border war between 1998 and 2000, but later restored relations in July 2018. The Nobel Peace Prize, worth 9 million Swedish crowns, or around $900,000, will be presented in Oslo on December the 10th. And finally, changing an old battery is not as simple as it sounds. For the second time this week, astronauts floated out of the International Space Station to replace decades-old batteries in the station's solar power network. The astronauts have 3 more trips to go before they finish installing new and improved lithium-ion batteries. And that's your international news around the world in 5.
Brilliant. Many thanks indeed, Juliana.